Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever stood at the edge of something and felt, without knowing why, that your life was about to change? Not in some small, passing way, but entirely? As if everything up until now was preparation for something you could not yet see, but could already feel vibrating beneath the surface of your daily life. I speak to you today not as someone who has always had answers, but as someone who has walked the long corridors of uncertainty and wandered the shadowed paths of waiting, and still found that God is never late, even when He is silent. There is a sacred pattern that governs the unfolding of our lives. You may call it divine timing, you may call it destiny, but what you cannot call it is random. In my years of study in both neuroscience and spiritual psychology, I have come to realize that what we often see as delays are actually the delicate preparations of God positioning us for a magnitude of opportunity our current version of self could not yet handle. We do not just grow into the opportunity grows into us. The version of you sitting here today is already being shaped for something enormous, something that will not merely bless your circumstances, but unlock your purpose. Let me begin by sharing something deeply human, a story. A few years ago, I sat with a young woman, brilliant, talented, and completely worn down. She had spent years working hard in a job that drained her, surrounded by people who doubted her, and living in a city where every door seemed shut tight. She cried as she spoke, not from weakness, but from the silent exhaustion that builds when you are faithful in a place that feels fruitless. She said, "I keep praying, but I think heaven forgot where I live." And I looked her in the eyes and said gently, "Heaven hasn't forgotten. Heaven is still building." 2 months later, she got a call that changed her life. A project she had started 3 years before and thought had failed was rediscovered by someone halfway across the world. Within weeks, she had a new career, new home, and new peace. What felt like an ending had been the beginning. And I realized, so many of us are standing in the middle of a divine build-up and calling it a breakdown. Science teaches us that the brain is wired to notice threats more than opportunities. It's part of our survival design, what we call the negativity bias. You will always see what's wrong before you see what's right, unless you train your perception. What if I told you that your perception is the gatekeeper of your destiny? That the next opportunity is not hidden in your circumstances, but in your capacity to see them differently. You see, faith is not denial of reality. Faith is the audacity to look reality in the face and declare that it does not get the final say. Faith is what allows you to walk through darkness with the knowing that light is still coming. But here's what's most remarkable. Every opportunity from God arrives disguised. It doesn't knock, it whispers. It comes wrapped in discomfort, confusion, or even crisis. And if you judge it too soon, you'll send away the very thing you were born to receive. There's a reason why the greatest transformations begin in silence. Seeds make no sound as they split open underground. Caterpillars don't cry out when they dissolve into butterflies. The work of God is often quiet, even when it is massive. That is the nature of holy things. They don't boast. They build. So if you are in a season where it seems like nothing is happening, I ask you to look again. Not with your eyes, but with your spirit. The human mind is extraordinary. It has the ability to imagine what doesn't yet exist and to create futures with thoughts alone. But the heart is where God writes His intentions. When your heart is aligned with His timing, everything you lost will come back differently, better, wiser, holier, more beautiful than you imagined. But when we try to rush the process, we often replace divine opportunity with human compromise. And the truth is, we've been trained by a world obsessed with speed, But divine opportunity doesn't bow to pressure. It bows to preparation. You cannot fake readiness with God. He sees your soul, not your schedule. He responds to obedience, not urgency. Some of you think the delay is punishment. It isn't. It's mercy. God is holding the opportunity until your hands are ready not to drop it. I've seen it again and again. A man who lost everything he built in his 20s, only to become the founder of a global mission by his 40s. A mother who wept every night for her prodigal son, only to witness him lead hundreds in worship a decade later. A man who begged God to heal his body, and though the healing didn't come in the way he imagined, it came with a new mind, a new strength, and a new assignment that would change nations. What I'm telling you is this: the opportunity that's coming isn't just about a job, a breakthrough, a house, or a relationship. It's about alignment. It's about the unlocking of everything in you that God planted before you were even born. And when that unlocking begins, when that door swings open, it won't be a single blessing. It will be a divine avalanche. The kind that floods every dry place in your life and drowns every lie that said you were too late. And let me say this gently to someone who's weary tonight. God has not wasted your pain. He's been storing every tear, recording every moment you didn't give up. And He's about to use it as currency to pay you back in ways that make suffering seem small in comparison. We often forget how deeply spiritual it is to wait. Waiting is not passive. It is not resignation. Waiting in the kingdom of God is the soul's silent preparation for something it cannot yet comprehend. In neurological terms, the brain does not distinguish much between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. So when you wait with faith, not fear, your body, your brain, your energy, everything begins to prepare as if the blessing has already arrived. And isn't that what true faith is? The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Now imagine this. Your life is like a locked vault, filled with treasures you don't even know are yours yet. Talents you've never tapped into, strengths forged in pain, visions that have been dormant under disappointment. And the key? That key is not something external. It's already within you. But God, in His mercy, has been holding the timing. Because if you'd accessed that vault too early, without the maturity, without the humility, without the wisdom, you might have squandered it. God doesn't just want to bless you. He wants to preserve you through the blessing. Think of this in terms of chemistry. In molecular biology, we understand that pressure can restructure the form of a compound without changing its identity. Diamonds, after all, are just carbon until pressure transforms them. That same principle is at work in your spirit. Some of the pressure you're under isn't because God is trying to break you. It's because He's transforming your spiritual composition so you can carry something heavier, something rarer, something worth far more than what you were asking for. But you have to stay on the altar long enough for the transformation to complete. And this is where many give up, just before the unveiling, just before the shift. You see, the devil doesn't attack people who are empty. He attacks those who are full of promise. He tries to convince you that the wilderness is permanent, that the delay is denial, that the silence is abandonment. But heaven does not rush miracles. It completes them. I have watched in wonder as people who were cast aside, overlooked, underestimated, who didn't fit into the rooms of power, were raised up by God Himself and placed in positions they didn't apply for. No resume, no recommendation, just divine intervention. And when I asked one of them how it all happened, they said, "I stopped trying to be seen by people and focused on being aligned with God. That alignment unlocked what decades of networking never could." There is something mysterious about God's process. It is never linear, it is never predictable, but it is always intentional. That door, yes, the one you think is rusted shut, the one you've knocked on with bloody knuckles, the one you stopped praying about, that door is still under construction, but not in the way you think. God is not just fixing the door, He's building the room behind it. He's preparing a place for you so when you enter, it is not just a breakthrough, it is a belonging. Do you know what happens in the brain when we anticipate something good? Dopamine floods our system. Not just when the good thing happens, but when we believe it's coming. That means belief itself has power, not just spiritually, but biologically. Faith isn't a feeling, it's a neurological and spiritual weapon. It reshapes how your body prepares for life. When you believe God is preparing something massive, your cells respond, your emotions align, your heart opens. You become magnetic to what was always meant for you. But let me caution you, with massive opportunity comes massive responsibility. And this is why God doesn't just prepare doors, He prepares hearts. If He gave it to you too early, you'd credit yourself, you'd mishandle it, you might even make it an idol. So He waits. And while you think He's doing nothing, He's actually doing everything. Sometimes He'll allow people to walk away not to punish you, but to purify the space. He'll let certain friendships collapse, jobs dry up, comfort zones crumble, not to hurt you, but to unhook your hope from things too small for your calling. There are some things you've been praying to keep that God is removing because they can't go where He's taking you. And it hurts, yes, but it's holy pain. It's the ache of stretching into something greater. And here's what I want you to remember. When God sends an opportunity, it does not arrive on your timeline. It arrives on His. And His timing is not measured by clocks, but by completion. The moment everything in you is ready to receive, that is when the opportunity comes. Not a second before, not a second after. I want to ask you something personal. What if the next season of your life is not about what you do, but about what you become? What if the massive opportunity God is bringing isn't just about success, but about transformation? What if the open door is not a destination, but a divine appointment to become the version of you that your childhood dreams once whispered about? Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to understand the weight of what I'm telling you. The opportunity that's coming is not ordinary. It will not just solve a problem. It will change your position. It will not just lift you up. It will awaken others through you. It will not only open one door, it will unlock every area where you've been stuck. Relationships, finances, health, peace, purpose. All of it aligned. And this opportunity, this holy moment, is not something you have to chase. You don't need to manipulate your way into it. It is coming like a river that knows its course. Your job is not to build the dam. Your job is to stay in alignment, to remain available, to keep your oil ready for the lamp, even when the night is long. It takes a rare kind of discipline to keep your oil ready when nothing around you suggests the door will open. It requires spiritual maturity to prepare for what you can't predict, to worship when the room is silent, to keep your spirit clean when the world tempts you to compromise. But make no mistake, those small acts of obedience in hidden places are more powerful than 1,000 public displays of success. God does not anoint the visible, He anoints the faithful. And the opportunity that's coming will not find you through status or popularity. It will find you through alignment. There is something sacred about the wilderness, the season where everything seems dry, where your prayers feel unanswered, where your heart begins to doubt what your soul once knew. And yet, It is in this wilderness that character is forged. Neuroscience tells us that the brain rewires itself through repetition. But the Spirit rewires through revelation. And revelation often comes not through comfort, but through silence, tension, and surrender. The wilderness isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's where you shed who you thought you needed to be, so you can step into who you actually are. Think about Moses. Think about David. Think about Joseph. Every one of them spent time in obscurity, waiting, not idly, but faithfully. Joseph was thrown in a pit, sold, forgotten in prison. And all along, God was not just preparing the throne for him, he was preparing him for the throne. What looked like betrayal was divine choreography. What felt like abandonment was redirection. The opportunity came not as a spotlight, but as a sudden shift, after years of what felt like stagnation. And when it came, it unlocked everything, not just for him, but for an entire nation. You don't know the ripple effect your obedience will have. You don't know what doors your pain will open for someone else. Sometimes your process is not about you. It's about those who will walk through after you. That's why the wait is long. That's why the fire has been hot. Because the opportunity that's coming isn't just about your comfort, it's about your calling. And callings are weighty. They require shoulders that have learned how to carry without collapsing. They require hearts that have been broken enough to feel, but healed enough to lead. One of the most powerful truths I've ever come to understand is this: the enemy cannot cancel what God has ordained. He can delay, he can distract, he can discourage, but he cannot deny what was written in heaven before time touched your name. The opportunity that's coming from God is massive, not just in scale, but in divine endorsement. That means no one can close the door once it opens. That means even if people walked away, even if they slandered you, even if they tried to ruin your reputation, God's plan doesn't need their permission. Heaven doesn't consult humans for its strategy. And some of you need to hear this today. You have not missed it. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not disqualified. That lie that says your best days are behind you, it's not truth. It's trauma speaking, and it's time to silence it with faith, because what's coming will make you wonder why you ever doubted. It will make you realize that God was never ignoring you. He was protecting you, holding the right thing until the wrong things passed, holding the real thing until your heart let go of the counterfeit. I remember sitting with a man who had lost everything: business, marriage, home. He told me he was done praying, that it hadn't worked, that God had gone quiet. And I didn't try to fix him. I just sat beside him, and after a long silence I said, "Sometimes God removes everything you leaned on, so you finally learn to lean on him." He wept. And months later, that same man found himself rebuilding not the life he lost, but a life he never dared to believe was possible. One centered not on what he could achieve, but on what he was created for. The opportunity that's coming is not just external, it's internal. It's a shift in vision, a recalibration of what matters, a turning of your eyes from survival to significance. God doesn't bless just to elevate you. He blesses to awaken you, to show you that you were never called to merely exist. You were called to live, to lead, to carry light in a world gone dim. And when you walk through that door, when the lock clicks open and the winds of destiny sweep you into that space, you will know it wasn't your intelligence that brought you here. It wasn't your hustle. It wasn't your charm. It was grace. And grace has a strange way of dressing people in garments they never thought they'd wear. The rejected becomes the respected. The laughed at becomes the leader. The last becomes the first. That's how God moves. He reverses things. And if you've been feeling like your story has been stuck in the valley, I'm here to tell you, God is preparing the mountaintop. Not because you deserve it, but because He's good and He finishes what He starts. So stay faithful, stay ready, keep your oil burning, keep your heart clean. The invitation is on the way, and when it comes, it won't knock politely, it will break the door wide open. You won't have to beg for it, you won't have to force it, it will flow. Because what God sends doesn't come with confusion, it comes with clarity, peace, strength, alignment. And when that moment comes, you'll look back on the years you thought were wasted and realize they were the foundation. Every no, every tear, every lonely night, every betrayal, every delay, they were bricks in the unseen architecture of your destiny. You'll stand in that unlocked place where your prayers meet your preparation, and you'll know deep in your bones that this was not luck. It was the orchestration of a God who doesn't waste pain, who doesn't forget obedience, and who never leaves His promises dormant forever. It will all make sense, not because the pain goes away, but because the purpose finally arrives to explain it. And you will cry, not from sorrow, but from recognition, that everything He allowed was not to ruin you, but to root you. And every delay was not a denial. It was divine calibration for timing you could never have imagined on your own. And here's the deeper layer. The opportunity God is about to send will unlock you. Not just your circumstances. It will activate hidden rooms inside your spirit that you didn't even know were sealed shut. It will awaken dormant potential, release ideas you've buried under fear, stir dreams you gave up on, and reconnect you with a version of yourself that's been waiting to rise. Because the truth is, sometimes life doesn't just lock doors, it locks people, traps them in the identities they outgrew, chains them to survival modes that numb their capacity for wonder. And when that divine door opens, it does more than change what's around you. It changes you. It's as if a key forged in the hands of eternity finds the exact groove of your soul, and everything, and I mean everything, begins to respond. People sense it before you even say a word. Rooms shift when you enter them, not because of arrogance, but because of anointing. And when you carry God's opportunity, you don't need to prove anything. You just are. You move with assurance, not because the path is smooth, but because you know who laid the path. You speak with clarity, not because you know all the answers, but because you trust the source of your direction. This is not about false confidence. This is about spiritual authority, the kind that isn't built overnight, but in the dark, in the stretching, in the waiting. The kind that grows when you choose character over compromise, prayer over panic, stillness over striving. That is the kind of person who's ready for the kind of opportunity I'm talking about. And if you've been walking through years that feel like they have no harvest, let me tell you something only those who've walked through it understand. The deeper the roots, the wider the bloom. You weren't being buried, you were being planted. And the time has come where you are no longer required to explain yourself to those who never saw your worth. No longer expected to shrink to keep others comfortable. No longer held hostage by the memory of your lowest moments. When this door opens, it doesn't just unlock destiny, it shuts the mouths of every lie spoken against it. The same people who said you'd never make it, they'll witness it, not because you want revenge, but because God will use your elevation as evidence of His sovereignty. This kind of opportunity breaks generational patterns. It rewrites bloodlines. It silences cycles. You see, blessings from God don't just affect you. They overflow. They pour onto your children, your community, your legacy. There are some opportunities that aren't given just for income, they are given for impact. And the reason it's taken so long is because it's not just about your breakthrough. It's about what your breakthrough unlocks in others. When I studied neuroplasticity, I was amazed to discover that the brain continues to change and adapt well into old age. That means you're never too late to be transformed, never too far gone to be renewed. If your brain, your biology, your being can be rewired with intention and belief, how much more can your life be redesigned by the hand of God? Your age, your past, your failures, none of these are barriers. They are blueprints, raw material for the divine architect to shape into something unrecognizably beautiful. There's a phenomenon in psychology called learned helplessness, where a person stops trying because of repeated failure. Even when the path becomes clear, they remain paralyzed, believing escape or change is impossible. Some of you are spiritually there. You've stopped knocking because you're tired of silence. You've stopped dreaming because the last one broke your heart. You've stopped praying bold prayers because disappointment was too sharp. And yet, despite that, I want to tell you, God hasn't changed his mind about you. Humph. The promise didn't expire just because your hope did. And you don't need a flood of faith to keep going. Sometimes all you need is the whisper that says, try again. Try one more prayer, one more act of obedience, one more decision to show up. Because what if the door is about to open this time? What if all of heaven has already turned its key and is waiting for your movement to match the miracle? You may be closer than you think. You may be standing inches from the turning point of your life. And this next breath, this next step, this next surrender, it might be the one that shifts everything. You've walked through fire that should have destroyed you. You've endured silences that could have swallowed your hope. And yet here you are, not perfect, not untouched, but still breathing, still believing, still standing. And that right there is the proof. Not that you've avoided pain, but that pain did not consume you. Not that you've had every answer, but that you've stayed open long enough for God to still write. The ink has not dried on your story. The author is still at the desk. And the chapter that's about to unfold will read like a miracle you once begged for in the dark. Don't make the mistake of thinking this is about vindication alone. The opportunity that's coming will not simply prove others wrong. It will reveal what's been right about you all along. What God saw when no one else did. What you tried to silence inside you just to survive. That voice, that quiet, holy echo in your chest that whispered, "You were made for more." That whisper was never a lie. It was a preview, and the scene it foreshadowed is finally arriving. We live in a world obsessed with optics, with curated lives, polished success, highlight reels. But God does not bless the performance. He blesses the preparation. You don't have to look ready to be ready. In fact, most of the people who carry the greatest callings rarely feel qualified for them. That's the irony of divine opportunity. It often shows up when you feel the least deserving, because grace operates in reverse logic. What you couldn't earn, He gives. What you couldn't reach, He brings low enough to meet your trembling hands. That's what makes it holy. Sometimes the key that unlocks the next season isn't action, it's awareness. Are you aware of what's being birthed in the silence? Can you feel the trembling under your feet, even when your eyes see no movement? Because if your awareness is tuned only to what is visible, you'll miss the invisible orchestration of heaven. But if your spirit can sense it, if something inside you still leaps at the sound of possibility, then you are closer than your emotions realize. Think of the moments that changed everything in your life. Did they come with warning? Or did they slip in quietly like sunrise on a sleepless night? That's often how God moves. Subtle at first, then suddenly, just like a shift in wind. You don't always see it coming, but when it hits, you feel it in your bones. That's what's near now. A shift, a turn, the kind you've waited years for, the kind you couldn't force, couldn't fake, and almost stopped believing in. And when it comes, it won't apologize for being late, because heaven's schedule is built on readiness, not convenience. There are no wasted seasons in the realm of God, only sanctified ones, only the kind that age you in wisdom, deepen you in discernment, refine you in patience. These are the ingredients of spiritual authority, and they are what make you trustworthy for what's coming. Because yes, opportunity opens doors, but only character keeps you in the room. This is why he's been so quiet. This is why the delay has felt unbearable. It's not because he was withholding out of cruelty. It's because he was weaving strength into the very walls of your soul. You thought he was ignoring your prayers, but in truth, he was answering them with a depth you couldn't comprehend. You asked him to use you, and so he shaped you. You asked him to enlarge your territory, so he had to enlarge your inner world to carry it. And now the ground is shifting, and whether or not you can sense it, whether or not the evidence has arrived, this is the moment to prepare like never before, not just practically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. Align your life with the weight of what you've been asking for. Clean out the rooms of doubt, of bitterness, of compromise, because when this opportunity arrives, it will not wait for you to get ready. It will move quickly. It will require faith that acts, not just believes. It will demand courage that steps, not just dreams. So check your oil, trim your lamp, strengthen your stance, not because you're trying to impress God, but because you're trying to match Him. There is a sound to alignment, and heaven is listening for it, like a lock waiting for the right shape, the right click, the right spirit. When your internal posture mirrors the divine pattern, the unlocking is effortless. It doesn't arrive through striving, it arrives through resonance. It arrives through resonance, and you'll know the moment is here, not because the skies part or angels sing, but because your soul will feel weightless, clear, assured. You'll move without fear, because fear won't fit where you're going. You'll speak without hesitation, because the words will be given to you in the moment you need them. You'll act without striving, because grace will carry you faster than effort ever could. This is what it means to walk into something God ordained. It feels like breathing for the first time in years, like your lungs finally remembered what they were made for, like every piece of you that was stretched thin finally pulls together in strength. And as you step through that door, you'll realize it was never about the door. It was always about who you became, waiting for it. There's something beautiful, almost holy, about realizing that the waiting didn't weaken you, it refined you. The delay didn't steal your destiny, it shaped your soul to carry it. The years that felt like wilderness were actually the sacred spaces where your roots ran deep enough to survive the coming weight of harvest. That is the paradox of heaven. God will let you feel forgotten in order to make you unforgettable. He will let you be hidden so that when you're revealed, you carry substance, not spectacle. This opportunity will not validate your ego. It will validate your existence. It will echo the silent promises God made to your heart before anyone knew your name. And when it comes, you won't need to announce it. The impact will speak for itself. People will see the shift. They'll feel the weight of it in your words, your walk, your presence. They'll ask you how you did it. And you'll smile. Because you'll know you didn't. You yielded. You aligned. You trusted. You endured. You became the kind of vessel that heaven could pour into. And you didn't do it for applause. You did it because something inside you refused to believe that life was meant to be ordinary. You did it because you were haunted by the thought of wasting your potential. You did it because the voice of God never stopped echoing in your bones, even when your circumstances were silent. And now all that faith, all that obedience, all that preparation, it's not returning empty. We serve a God who rewards with multiplication, not addition. When He moves in overflow. That means the opportunity that's coming won't just restore what you lost, it will add to it. It will expand beyond it. It will make you forget the pain in the joy of the promise fulfilled. Like a woman who labors for hours in agony, only to hold the child and whisper, "It was worth it." That's the kind of redemption we're talking about, the kind that doesn't just explain your story, it rewrites it. And you'll realize in hindsight that what you were begging God to give you years ago is less than what He's bringing now. Because you were asking from the place of survival, but He answers from the place of purpose. He gives not based on your understanding, but on your design. He knows what you were built to carry, even when you doubt your own capacity. So don't curse the seasons that humbled you. Don't despise the days that stripped you. They weren't setbacks. They were sacred surgeries. God was cutting out what couldn't follow you into favor. He was severing attachments that looked safe but were actually small. He was quieting the noise of the world so you could hear His whisper clearly. And it's in that whisper that you'll find your next instruction. Because this opportunity won't come with a spotlight. It'll come with a whisper, now. And in that holy moment, every cell in your body will know it. You'll recognize the divine timing, not because of external confirmation, but because your spirit will be at peace. That's how you know it's Him. Not the rush, not the noise, the peace. A kind of peace that surpasses understanding because it doesn't rely on explanation. It just is. And you will walk through that door with reverence, not entitlement, because when God moves like this, it humbles you. It strips away pride. It reminds you that you were never the source, only the vessel. And the more empty you became of self, the more He filled you with power. That is the secret to divine alignment. Less of you, more of Him. And now, with everything inside you surrendered, with every idol cast down, with every fear finally silenced, you are ready. The time is near. The shift is close. You've cried for it. You've bled for it. You've been stretched and broken and reshaped for it. And now, heaven leans forward. The angels watch. Creation holds its breath. Because the next door is not just your breakthrough. It is your becoming. Walk through it with boldness. Speak when He tells you. Move when He leads. And don't look back. The season behind you was necessary, but it is not your identity. The shame, the waiting, the questions, they're over now. You have crossed the threshold, and everything is about to unlock.